do mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are important. Every mitzvah gives you a chance to refine yourself, elevate yourself, make yourself into the best person you could possibly be. A person molded in Hashem's image. Anything better than that? I mean, that Hashem says, hey, you want to be a perfect human being? Keep my mitzvahs. There's 613 mitzvahs, 613 limbs of the human body. 613 attributes of the soul in other places. You keep the mitzvahs, the body and the soul are going to be in the most perfect way possible. That's an awesome idea. But that isn't what he's talking about in the whole Sikha. What's he talking about? Every mitzvah is a bond between me and God, and you, and each one of us and God. I had an argument with my wife the other day. Not an argument. My wife is, we're both in their 70s. You don't argue anymore. But you talk. She says, I had to clean up it. When you poured the spices onto your breakfast, I had to clean up at the counter afterwards. Smalka, it's always, I didn't see it. Don't you understand? I'm concerned about the spices, but that hurt me. You made me extra work that I didn't have to do, which, forget about the extra work, that's also a pain. But that means you didn't have any consideration for me. And I go, oh. In other words, it's got nothing to do with the spices. It's got nothing to do even with the work. It's, my wife didn't feel that she was considered important, significant, valued. Why? She's my wife. If she was a worker hired in the house, she's working hired in the house. In the house, so you clean up. That's what you're paid for. This isn't the worker. This is a wife, the person who you're intimately connected with. So you care about the way they feel, and you're responsive to that. That's what he said. That's what he said. That's the fundamental. The rest of the Sikha, we'll get into how he speaks about in the Sikha, but that's the whole point of the Sikha, that the mitzvahs are bonds between a Jew and God, like the bond between a man and his wife in a marriage thing. And just like the spices, it's got to do with the fact that you and I are in a bond and you betrayed the bond. Whenever a Jew misses any particular thing in the relationship, forget about the specific thing that they've done, how serious it is, how not serious it is. It's all about the bond. How much are we bonded with him? How much do we care about him? How much, like again, when you're not careful about how you spill those spices, that means you don't care about me. Come on now. But in one level, yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. That's exactly what we're talking about. No, yeah, no, my wife isn't listening. Because it's private conversations don't have to be shared, but that's the whole point. Everything with Hashem is a private conversation. It's that same concept of a marriage bond. In every mitzvah, you became a better person by putting on tefillin. You elevated your heart and your mind. Yes, you did. But that isn't what putting on tefillin is all about. Putting on tefillin is Just like we Mekadesh a woman, Hashem is Mekadesh us with his mitzvahs. And we bonded with him, Loshen Sotah. Bonding mitzvahs, Loshen Sotah. That's every mitzvah is just that. And almost, I would say, only that. Okay, this is, again, all that we find, the idea of refining, making sure the best person possible, all that's all true. But that's the icing on the cake, not the core of what's happening. Okay, that's the hakdama to the sikha, but it's, like I said, if you walk out of the sikha with just that, you got it. And so let's look inside. Parshas Naso contains laws governing a Sotah, a woman suspected of infidelity. You guys know what the Parsha is talking about or not? Means like this. A man and his wife, they're married, he sees her talking to another person a little bit too often. He says, I'm giving you a warning. Never be seen alone with this other person. Never be alone with this other person. Not be seen with that. Never be alone with this other person. If she does, the people who see them go into a private place together don't know what happened. And maybe nothing happened. We don't know what happened. That isn't the question. But the fact that she violated her husband's warning and went into a private place with this other man requires her to undergo a specific test of fidelity. It's a very severe one. Take it to the base of Mikdash. They actually blot out a scroll with Hashem's name on it, the name Yud Kei Vod Kei, which you're never allowed to blot out. Add into the water, and she drinks it. If she was in fact she committed adultery with this other man, she dies. And she dies in a very, her whole body ruptures and she has contusions all over the place. If she wasn't adulterous, they just went into the private place together, she walks out and she and her husband resume relations, and she, on the contrary, is blessed. She gives birth she gives birth to children, blah, 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 blah.
Was this to legislate capital punishment for adultery out of existence, or did it exist simultaneously?
This is
why have
on the contrary. If somebody saw adultery, that's a whole different story.
Then it would just be, well, why not? Okay, you couldn't just do the magic potion then.
No, that's the whole point. This is just for suspicion. That's the whole thing.
And this will determine if it's
right. And again, besides for the quote miraculous dimension of this idea of suspicion, that's the point that I was going to mention here also, is a core idea here. So
this has nothing to do with taking the power away from meeting out.
On the contrary, if they saw adultery, then she doesn't drink the potion. If she was witnessed, none of that even one witness is normally for adultery you need two. But after being warned, if one witness sees adultery, she's already got, not because it's already established. So that's what it says here. When a man is warned to let her to be alone with a certain man, witnesses testify she disobeyed his warning. Again, just went into privacy with this other person, she's classified as a Sotah. Even though she may not have committed adultery, the very fact that she was alone with that man after being warned by her husband requires her to undergo the test of fidelity described in the slow portion. Okay, the relationship between a man and his immortal husband and wife, including all its details, and mirrors and derives from its ultimate source, the bond between God and Jewish people are called man and wife. Accordingly, it follows that all the particular aspects of those regarding of Sotah have their parallel in the relationship between the Jews and God. The commandment, you have no other gods before me, represents God's warning of the Jewish people. At Sinai is considered the marriage bond between God and the Jewish people. At Sinai, God says, you shall have no other gods before me, prohibiting them from worshiping or bonding with any other entity other than him. This command is not only issued to the Jewish people as a collective, but to every individual Jew. Therefore, the verse uses a singular form of the word Jew. In other words, this is like a general idea about the Parshas Dibros. Lo yeh lecha, not lechem, lecha, individual. All the Parshas Dibros are individual. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. No, not Elokechem. I am God, your singular Lord, not your plural Lord. All the Parshas Dibros are not commandments to Jews as collective, but to Jews as an individual, or the Lashon of the Gemara is Medrash or God should with the Lashon Islam. It's as if God was speaking to every Jew as an individual. Yes, the voice was to the people as a whole, but every individual felt it as a one-on-one connection. God's talking to me. Thus, it resembles the husband's warning to his wife not to seclude herself with another man. Nevertheless, the parallel relationship with Hashem is difficult to understand. How is it possible to seclude oneself and be concealed from Hashem? Yeah, how's it? There's no place where he's not. Wherever a person tries to hide, he's seen by God, as it's written. A person who conceals the hidden places will not see him. How then can a Jew seclude himself and be unseen by God, as it were? Where can you go? Where can you hide from him? So what does it mean, seclude yourself? So the Rebbe answers, it's like this. It's a very powerful answer. Asserts relate that concerning a proud and arrogant person, Hashem states, I and he cannot dwell in the same place. Anybody with an ounce of pride, when they read that Gemara, it's Gemara in Sotah. I and he cannot dwell in the same place. When you put yourself up with pride, you're, as it were, banishing God. Thus, his conceit brings about something comparable to concealing from God. God would draw us with pride from man. He is not with him. It's as if God doesn't see him, so to speak. This is alluded to the extended interpretation of the above verse at Baal Shem Tov. The person who conceals himself in hidden places, I will not see him. So the Baal Shem Tov decides, if the person conceals himself in hidden places, declares God, because of his eye, that stops me from seeing him. When a person feels his equal, God diverts his sight from him, as it were. So how do you hide from Hashem? Become prideful. Prideful. Again, we're not speaking about self-esteem.
Ego, arrogance.
Yeah, but there's a big difference in self-esteem and pride. Self-esteem is healthy. A person should see himself good. And this is a classic. We had this in all the Bahar Sikhs. We did this several times in different motifs. Torah is given on Mount Sinai. Why Mount Sinai? Because it's the lowest mountain. It's teaching to be humble. But wait a second, Mount Sinai is a mountain. Because you have to have this positive self-esteem. You have to be the lowest mountain, but you have to have self-esteem. You're a mountain. You're important. You're valuable. You stand for something. Truth. Not only in your own eyes, it's not inflated self-esteem. honest. You are meaningful. Yeah. I think next one.
Talmud states that when a husband withdraws his warning to his wife, the warning is withdrawn. Although he warned her against secluding herself with another man, if he withdraws the warning, it is as if he never issued it to begin with. Sages clarify, however, that a husband has the right to withdraw his warning only before his wife enters into seclusion with the man regarding whom she was warned. Once she is alone with him, the warning can no longer be withdrawn, and the woman must drink the bitter waters.
This is a point of halacha, but it's important. It's an important point. Again, people aren't committing adultery necessarily. They're going to a private room. So, as you look in the footnotes later on, it's here also. Footnote 12. There's a prohibition against yichud. You're not allowed to be alone with any woman, really. Even a not married woman, definitely married woman. You're not allowed to be alone in a closed room with her. That's why, a lot of, again, there are all sorts of heterim, how you can, where you can. But people are very makbid on it, and for good reason also. Let's be very honest. There's plenty of good reason. But like, when the Rebbe, when people would go with yichidus, women went to yichidus alone. The Rabbi Groner would always open, the door was left open, Rabbi Groner would always open and close the door, so the Rebbe was never alone as a certain time. And lots of people are very careful about how much you're careful, what degree you're careful, but people take care about this because it's definitely in today's business environment, it's a factor. So when you do business, but that isn't what we're talking about, because being alone with this other with a woman doesn't necessitate Sotah. When's a Sotah? When there's a warning. So the husband is balabas of his warning. He has the authority. He gave it. He can withdraw it. But Torah says, when can he withdraw it? Only if she hasn't violated it yet. Once she has violated it, done. Because the Torah, gave a whole setup, a whole framework for this thing. If she violated, she's already entered into this framework, which now becomes incumbent upon her.
The rationale is that as long as she has not entered a private place with the other man, the husband's warning stands independently. There is no action supporting it. As such, he has authority over it and may withdraw. However, when the woman has already secluded herself with the other man, his warning no longer stands alone. An action has taken place, and now there exists a supporting factor independent of him. Since he has no control over his significant factor, or with this significant factor, he cannot withdraw the warning.
So this is the law of Talmud Bavli.
Right. Talmud Yerushalmi appears to differ, stating that a husband can withdraw his warning even after the woman secluded herself with the man in question, as long as the scroll written for the Sotah had not been blotted out in the water.
In other words, until the actual final moment of blotting out the scroll, husband can withdraw his warning according to Yerushalmi. Now, you don't want to have a machlokes about the Yerushalmi. I mean, if you're stuck with it, you're stuck with it. And many times the Gemara has, there is that. But whenever you can minimize machlokes, you do. That's one of the halachic principles. So how do we reconcile it? Rabbi is a brilliant Talmud Chacham, and he comes up with an example.
Rabbi explains that there is no disparity between the Talmud Bavli and Talmud Yerushalmi. Talmud Yerushalmi is talking about a meeting which would not be forbidden, were it not for the husband's warning. For example, he warned her not to be alone with, for example, her father or with 100 men at the same time. This is not a seclusion forbidden by the Torah, and it has no significance if not for her husband's warning. As such, if he withdraws his warning, the seclusion automatically loses all significance and the entire matter is nullified.
In other words, in a normal situation, You can't be alone with this one man. Even the Yerushalmi would agree. Why? Because as I said before, yichud is a prohibition. So it's not only her action. Like the first thing, when I was translating, I had to write it in a way that the havamina, the original supposition, could exist. So I said the action supported it. But the action itself really isn't. The action has really no significance unless it does have significance. If the act is forbidden by the Torah, then it's a significant act. If it's not forbidden by the Torah, then the husband gave a warning. That warning isn't really something of substance, because if she was together with her father, and that's not something which she was together with 100 men. That's not a marriage issue. This particular husband got sticky about it, and everybody has a right to be sticky. So yes, if he actually issues such a warning, it's respected, and she has to. If she violated it, but if he wants to be a mention and withdraw the warning, he can and he should. That's what Yerushalmi said.
To derive a parallel regarding the bond between Hashem and the Jewish people, since in truth at all times there's no place where he is not, there is never any possibility of seclusion from God. The possibility of a person being alone without God is only because that person's ego banishes Hashem's presence. As it is written, all those with a haughty heart are an abomination to God. He does not desire haughtiness, shunning a prideful person to the extent that I and he cannot dwell in the same place. Since the possibility of being apart, secluded from God, is thus dependent solely on his will, God can always withdraw his warning, even if it has been transgressed.
In other words, we're in the same situation as the Yerushalmi. In other words, there's no factor which really is stopping God from withdrawing the warning, because there's nothing significant. God doesn't like a person with conceit. He can't take it. So he doesn't take it. But if for whatever reason he wants to give up that, he can. I think that's
removing the separation. Until when can the husband's warning be withdrawn, even in those instances when the prohibition of seclusion is dependent solely on his warning? As long as the scroll written for the Sotah has not been blotted out in the water, blotting out the letters on the scroll involves separating the letters from the parchment.
Okay, so here's getting into an idea which you had several times in the past. There's written letters and engraved letters. What's the difference between the two of them? The editor, when she was looking over this, she says, well, written letters also become part of the substance. Engraved letters is part of the stone. Written letters are also part of the, they seep in and become part of the parchment. Yeah, but as long as you can wash them away, they're not really part of the parchment itself. That's what?
The fact that it has potential to be maybe taken away.
Yeah, and as long as it has that potential, that means it's not essentially the one. Something which is essentially one. My kid is my kid. Can't stop. That's it. He's got my DNA. He's stuck with it. Good, bad, and different. He's got my DNA. He and I are, to a certain extent, but he's got my wife's DNA also, so it's a part, whatever. But he's got my DNA. Can't take that away. I got good friends. We share a lot. Care about them. They care about me. They give a lot to me. I give to them. They don't have my DNA. Oh, but we love you. We're so yeah, all good, fine. Something added, not essentially one. That's the difference between. You'll see why.
This implies and reveals that even before they were washed away, the letters and the parchment were not an integral whole. For if they had been an integral whole, it would not have been possible to erase them. By contrast, when letters are engraved, the letters and the object upon which they are engraved becomes a single entity. It is impossible to destroy the letters without destroying part of the stone itself. What is the spiritual parallel to the scroll not being blotted out? When a Jew studies the Torah in a manner resembling engraving, i.e., it is impossible to remove the letters of the Torah from his being, he and the Torah are a single entity.
No, this is one of the things where, because that would often, especially the previous Rebbe, and then Rebbe did it, for one reason, the Rebbe brought the same idea. It's also way back from the Alter Rebbe. People would learn Torah by heart. Mishnayos, everybody went to Lubavitch camps, Mishnayos Baal Peh. You remember that one, don't you? Yeah, Cocoa Club.
Yeah.
But I had good memories. So I didn't go to Lubavitch camp, but later at camp I was very into kids do it. I said, fine, you do it by heart. But why? What's so important about it? When push comes to shove, what's so important? Because then the Torah is part of you. It isn't quite the same thing because if you're learning it, but you learned it to the point where it's already sunk in that you and it are not two separate things. The Torah is who you are. And the ultimate thing, that's really what when we say, Yisrael v'yiraisa v'kutshibricha kulechad, God, the Jews, and the Torah are all one. That means that this is the same DNA. That's really exactly what we're talking about. That the Torah is the DNA which God implanted in the Jewish people. But just like my child, my sons, my daughters are my DNA, Torah is the DNA which God has implanted in the Jewish people, and therefore, Yisrael v'yiraisa v'kutshibricha kulechad, God, the Torah, and the Jewish people are one. This is a single entity. They're not separate things. So what does that mean in return? When we speak about a person hiding from God, why is hiding from God? Because he's so full of his ego that God says, I don't want to look at this guy. I don't want to look at this guy. Why? Because he's full of his ego. But wait a second. Is he really separate from God? What's his DNA? His DNA is Torah, which is God. He's not separate from God. Oh, he's making himself separate. So that's the point here.
In this instance, even when such a Jew becomes secluded from God because of his conceit, the separation is only external. God's forgiveness can nullify everything. It is as if the entire matter ceased to exist, and God is abundant in forgiveness. However, if the scroll is...
You should look at footnote 18 there. He brings it. That's why sin doesn't really cause a separation. Because the Torah is who you are, so a sin is a sin. So it cuts off a certain dimension of your connection to Hashem, but it doesn't erase your DNA. There's one difference, he says, the sin of idol worship, of false gods. Because then you've cut off, you've separated yourself from him in a real essential way. It says it's absolute the Chochmah in the Nefesh, but it gives a beautiful thing. So what happens after the golden calf? Moshe breaks the tablets. What are the tablets? The engraved letters. There's that. So in other words, you are breaking your bond with Hashem that's engraved in your being, so you don't get the engraved letters. It's almost cute, but that's the point that I was bringing out here. Okay, now, so it's just that Hashem is abundant forgiveness. But go ahead.
However, if the scroll is blotted out, i.e. his connection with the Torah is severe, that implies that even beforehand, the person and the Torah were always two separate entities. In such an instance, it is possible that his sense of self and his conceit will have permeated his being through and through. Then the laws of the Sotah apply to him.
You normally, so like I said before, just like when there's no real prohibition against the man and the woman being together. So if the husband gives a warning, he can withdraw the warning. When the person's conceit is just external, his ego is, he's got it, but no, it's, external. So Hashem is abundant forgiveness. There's a way to soothe everything out. When the scroll is blotted out, the letters of the Torah are separated. The Jew and God never really had it together in a conscious way. Then he's got a problem. So it's required. How do you? So what is it? Take next a little bit. Sorry. What does the Sotah do?
What is required of the Sotah? To bring a meal offering of barley, which is referred to by our sages as onan folly.
Most of the offerings in the base of Mikdash were wheat. Most of the meal offerings, they were wheat. There were two offerings that were barley, Sotah and the Omer. We just finished this Spears Omer. The Omer is both of them are barley. Why? Because barley is called animal food. I've never run a farm, so I don't know. But barley grew more abundantly, fetched a lower price than wheat. So most of the time you wouldn't feed animals wheat because it's expensive. Feed animals barley. Wheat you give for human beings. That was the Gemara considers wheat food for humans, barley food for animals. So for the Sotah, we said that was dealing with the animal soul. Why is the Sotah offering barley? Because she acted like an animal. When a person gives in to their own physical desires, animalistic. A person should be Baal Basa of themselves. When they give in to their animal desires, she brings a barley offering. Yep. Moreover,
the meal offering a Sotah brings is a tenth of an ephah in measure, the size of an offering brought by the most indigent.
And other sacrifices, there's all sorts of measures. You can bring an ephah, you can a whole ephah, 2 ephahs, up to 60.
What is the ephah?
Ephah is a dry measure. I don't remember exactly how much it is. You can make up to 60. This is a 10. If a person is very poor, it only brings an ephah is equal to what's called an isoron. A person brings only one isoron. If he's rich, he can give more, up to 60. So, why does the Sotah bring only an ephah? Because that's poor. What does it mean? What does poverty mean? It's a spiritual concept.
In a spiritual context, this means that the Jew must bring himself to the awareness and the feeling that he is impoverished in knowledge to the extent that he sees himself like an animal that has no knowledge at all.
The offering that's barley and it's poor, it's the offering of the poor, is to emphasize this idea of lack of knowledge. You're conducting yourself not thoughtfully, not mindfully. And so that's going to take away the person's conception. Again, now he's speaking not in the conception of the marriage relationship, the woman. He's speaking about in our relationship with Hashem. When a person gets to the point where his ego is concealing him, that was going to concealment. That's got a lot to do with pride in your thought processes. If I can lift 100 pounds, that type of pride is not going to really take you away from Hashem. So yeah, you'll get ego from it a little bit, but when you really start to think that I understand and I know and I realize, that's when your ego really can block your connection with Hashem. And so that person's got to feel, and that's concealment. So how's it? We said when a person has that concealment, his Torah is something always separate. He and his Torah are going to be separate. That was important. Because he's proud of his Torah knowledge. He's not concerned with the Torah. He's concerned with that he knows. So how's he going to get rid of that? By looking at himself as proud of knowledge. He said, I don't know. And also looking at himself as just like an animal. Animal with no knowledge whatsoever. Because really, that's the truth. So that is really the core of selfishness. Because an animal really, if you see an animal look heavenward, it doesn't work that way. An animal thinks about looks at the world, what it can do for him, not how he can rise above himself. So this idea of self-consciousness is a very animal trait. That's what we're talking about, how to get rid of that.
When he wipes away his consciousness of self, bringing himself to such a level of bittul, not only does he become pure in God's eyes, he reaches an even higher level than he had attained previously, as implied by Torah's promise regarding the Sotah. And she will be acquitted and will bear offspring. Our sages interpret this to mean if she previously had given birth with difficulty, she now will give birth with ease.
No, this is a nakuda here. That this conception of self and the ego which comes with it, it's a problem. But in the end, when you conquer it, and you do tshuva, and you're able to really wipe this away, your bond with Hashem is greater than if you never had it. And I think that, it's like any tshuva works out. A tshuva for any sin works away. But for ego, it's even more significant. When a person is in touch with ego, they're the center of the universe. But that person is also kind of in touch with himself in a real way. The very fact that he's the center of his universe means that he thinks about himself. His position is real for him. He's not just a nobody who doesn't care about anything too much. Yeah, that go through the motions. So when that person who is in touch with himself, decides that I've got to come in touch with Hashem, his bond with Hashem becomes stronger than just the person who doesn't think about his eye so much. Because thinking about your eye means, oh, I'm real. So once I decide that I'm real, means I'm going to bond with Hashem, because I realize that He's the real. It's a whole deeper bond than just the person who never took himself seriously to begin with. So that's the idea that through this tshuva, the person comes to a higher level. That it's a negative thing. I'm not going to say ego is good, but it gives you a starting point for a real, genuine relationship, the real type of relationship. So implies a spiritual power.
Implied is also a spiritual power. For we often know the righteous, and your nation are all righteous, are mitzvahs and good deeds. The term our sages use with ease, the Rebbe, also implies an expansive state. The Jew will continue to progress in his mitzvahs until he reaches an expansive state at one with God's essence, with the sages state. In the place where Bali Shuvah stand, not even perfectly righteous men are able to.
So this is the point here. When a person goes through the process of tshuva, Sotah, that brings him into connection with God's very essence itself. And therefore his mitzvahs come naturally, with ease. And that's also something, when you think about yourself, so any mitzvah I do is something added on. That's actually with ease, just the way it is. I don't think about it, it's natural for me. That's when a Jew is in touch with his nefesh elokis, with his godly soul, and that's who he really is. So of course, every mitzvah, that's what follows. It's just a natural thing. I do mitzvahs because that's who I am. So that's that. She gives birth with ease. The birth, the offspring, tzaddikim, and our nation also tzaddikim, come with ease, just with this natural flow of this is who I really am. Okay, just want to mention this. That Rebbe would always, today finish is like now, right after Good Beis Sivan. Good Beis Sivan was the day of Tashlum for Matan. There were 7 days where you could bring your Yeshua sacrifices. Supposedly, you're supposed to bring them the first day. For various reasons, people brought them on the second day. You could bring them for 7 days. Because Shavuos is only 1 day. All the other yonts, Sukkot, Pesach, are 7 or 8. Shavuos, you had 7 days to bring the sacrifice. The last day, the day was the 12th of Sivan. Whatever says Tashlumim is compensation. You compensate for not bringing the first day. It's also Tashlumim Loshen Shleimus. Such Tashlumim also has the idea of bringing it to a completion. That you want to complete Matan Torah, you got till 12 Sivan. So and I remember that this is that I would many years that I would for bringing on 12 Sivan. I remember this is Tashlum and Aleph. It was an awesome scene. I wasn't there, but I heard about it, firsthand. I heard when people were there. It was Shabbos, 12th Sivan Shabbos. So that held normal for bringing on Shabbos, and it's a Shabbos. Then it was for bringing every Shabbos. Anyway, in general, it was for bringing Shabbos after Shavuos. But afterwards, after the Farbrengen ended early, he came down, so he went up to his room instead of having mincha right after Farbrengen. He went up to his room. He came down with a towel over his shoulder, and he wanted somebody to bring big motzi, to bring negabasa to wash. The whole shul, you were there?
Very few people.
Yeah, no, the place is empty.
They were about to start Seder Megunim.
Yeah.
But that is there.
Yo wasn't there. He came running.
Right, because the shul was my parents' home, and they started it together to Seder Megunim. So my dad was there early. I remember running benches. The Rebbe walked in holding the cart. It wasn't over his shoulder, it was over his head.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no place to pour it. They broke chapa from next door. But I remember the whole thing.
Yeah. But that was, a very...
Like a Shalosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the first time they ever watched it. Said,
After Mincha?
Yeah, it was late. No, it was after.
You sit down
It was
and then-
after Mincha. Rebbe said that they sang radio. You never heard that. It was so empty. It was like we were facing the other way by the shul.
Yeah.
And you heard pop. from the benches, people jumped. Everybody just came down the steps, went to the sink, downstairs in the elevator.
Like no warning, just walk
No
down.
warning.
No,
Walk down.
no masker was there, nothing. It was rolling its out. Walked in, I remember jumping into the beaver and then walking the top of the benches. They brought a coffee, they dumped the coffee urn out. They can bring an empty coffee urn so he can wash his hands.
And the whole scene was total. But that was so. Anybody who got a sensitivity to that one realize what a special day 12 Siv it is, and so therefore, like.
It was also because that Pesach, the Rebbe stopped Kesher Bracha early.
Yeah,
So Tashlumin, the Rebbe continued Kesher Bracha that night to make up for Pesach.
yeah, but
That's what they were talking then.
the point is that it was he often had for Brengens on 12 Siv, but he had never done this.
They never did Kesher Bracha on 12.
Yeah. No, there were 12 Siv Brengens who they would wash, and
No, Kesher Bracha.
yeah, whatever they would wash, he gave kosher bracha.
Really?
Yeah, whatever he washed for Brengen, he would give kosher bracha. Question is,
Every Shabbos.
he didn't wash.
Right.
You see, Amazonas. There were except the classic for Brengens, you get the sister didn't wash.
Right.
Yishvati didn't wash. He very rarely washed for Brengen. When he did, it was kosher bracha. Anyway, so this is fit time for. If we didn't have the class anyway, I probably would have started doing something for 12 Siv because anybody who from that time on, especially, it became like a fixture. It's a time for Brengen time to get together. So Baruch Hashem, we're able to do that.